Okay, we got some news on Jehovah's Witnesses. They've been struggling with some court-related things. Famously, a little while back in Norway, they were looking at losing their religious status, and I believe they lost their status as a religion in Norway, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, because they refused to stop shunning, and as a result, that means a few things in Norway. First, Norwegian religions get money from the government depending on how many members they have. So if they have like, say, 1 million members, they get like $1 million from the government per year or something. Those aren't the exact numbers, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea of how it operates. They had their status as a religion removed in Norway, and that also means that they're not allowed to perform wedding ceremonies and stuff like that. They have to have like a court official there to be able to perform wedding ceremonies. And there are a bunch of other things that they're very upset about. Anyway, it looks like they're facing some problems in France as well. Just take a look at this Reddit post on the subject. Breaking news, Jehovah's Witnesses in France warned of losing religious status. A branch communication dated October 6, 2025 was sent for the local assemblies of metropolitan and overseas France. It reveals that on September 15th, 2025, the Perfect House des Signes officially notified two of the Jehovah's Witness associations, the Religious Association of Jehovah's Witnesses of France and the Christian Federation of Jehovah's Witnesses of France, of the intention to withdraw their legal recognition as religious associations. This decision is based on reports from
the Interministerial Mission for Vigilance in the Fight Against Sectarian Abuses.
Sectarian,
sorry. It's an acronym.
Oh, okay. A French government body that monitors and reports on cultic and coercive practices. Miviludes claims that Jehovah's Witnesses engage in practices that undermine the freedom of association and public order, particularly citing ostracism and psychological pressure against those who wish to leave. Yeah, that's interesting because the UN Declaration of Human Rights, I don't know if you guys have ever looked through that before. Have you?
Not some of it, but no.
Okay, well, let me just pull it up real fast. They're pretty short. It's things like Article 1 here. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in the spirit of brotherhood. It's that kind of thing. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses openly and flagrantly violate Articles 18 and 20. And this is probably why they're facing the problems in France, among other places. Article 18, everyone has a right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others and in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. And Article 20, everyone has a right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association, and no one may be compelled to belong to an association. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses are very obviously violating both of those, especially the second part of Article 20. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Jehovah's Witnesses are compelling people to belong by holding their family relationships over their heads, and it destroys lives. It destroys lives. The letter warns that if the recognition is revoked, Jehovah's Witnesses could lose their tax benefits and ability to receive legacies. Oh, that's interesting. I believe that means they'll lose their ability to be bequeathed with like trusts when somebody dies. They leave stuff in their will. I could be wrong there. The Council of Ministers could dissolve their religious associations, resulting in the loss of properties used for worship. Okay, that may be a little further than I'm comfortable with. JWs are urged to send respectful letters of protest to the prefect during the week of October 13th, obtain contact details from their congregation elders, and make the situation a subject of your prayers. Wow, that's going to help.
What happens if it doesn't work? If their prayers don't go through, then...
It will, because prayer works, always. Any problem, prayer always solves it.
My question is, what are they going to think when their prayers, who everyone in all of the congregations in France, including the elders and everyone else, are praying for? What happens when it doesn't work? What happens when that doesn't happen?
Yes, it's just Jehovah's will. That's, Jehovah wants them to suffer to learn a lesson or something like that.
or it's a show of the end times, and this is them being persecuted, and the apocalypse is anytime now. It's right around the corner. We're gonna see it in our lifetimes, everyone.
That's possible. I mean, they've been saying that for 200 years. So.
And I guarantee they're gonna say it when they lose.
Yeah, no doubt.
If they lose, but when they lose.
For the local assemblies of metropolitan and overseas France. 1. Intention to withdraw our association's religious benefits. On September 15th, 2025, the prefect of Hauts-de-Seine officially informed 2 of our associations, namely the Religious Association of Jehovah's Witnesses of France and the other one, of his intention to withdraw the benefits as religious associations. This decision is based on reports from the Interministerial Mission for Vigilance against the fight against sectarian abuses, a government body which denounces practices that undermine freedom of association and public order. It notably claimed that members of Jehovah's Witnesses wishing to leave the assembly would suffer ostracism and psychological pressure.
Possible repercussions of the loss of this legal recognition. If the religious status of our associations were no longer legally recognized, we could lose the ability to receive legacies and be deprived of the tax benefits we enjoy on donations and property. Even more worrying, the prefect accuses us of breaches of public order, which amounts to accusing us of criminal acts. The Council of Ministers could use this reason to dissolve our religious associations, which would result in the loss of real estate used for our worship.
I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses should not be allowed to worship. They absolutely should. Freedom to practice their religion. And I doubt it's going to get to the point where they're not allowed to worship. I will be very surprised if that happens. But either way, I don't think it should. I think they should be allowed to kind of do, what they want by and large. They should just be penalized with by being forced to pay extra in taxes and things like that. Letters of protest to the prefect. The branch is taking steps to respond to this intention to withdraw the legal recognition of these 2 religious associations. If you wish to support this approach, you may consider sending a respectful letter to the prefect to protest the withdrawal of the religious benefits currently enjoyed by these 2 associations. This letter should be sent during the week of October 13th. Honestly, they should be paying taxes anyway. Everybody should be paying taxes. I understand the purpose of giving tax-exempt status to nonprofits or non-government organizations or whatever. But the reason for tax-exempt status in the first place is because they are supposed to provide some public good, right? Well, what public good do religions provide? They don't. There is no public good that a religion provides inherently. Some religious organizations run soup kitchens. Great. Some of them run hospitals. Fantastic. What public good does a religion inherently, just as a religion, provide? Nothing. They shouldn't get tax-exempt status for being a religion. They should get tax-exempt status for doing something good for society, in my opinion. And I would love to see Jehovah's Witnesses have their tax-exempt status removed here. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but we'll see.
The congregation elders can provide you with the prefect's contact information as well as information you might want to mention in your letters. You want me to read number 5 too?
Yeah.
We ask that you make this situation a subject of your prayers.
2 Thessalonians 3, 1 and 2. 1 Timothy 2, 1 and 2.
We are confident that Jehovah will continue to bless his servants and that, quote, no weapon made against us will prevail. As Elijah said to his servant, do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more numerous than those who are with them. That's not true. That's just objectively false.
Yeah. Okay, wow, that's fascinating. And I guess this is the French communication. Wow.
Sorry, wait, even if you combine them with literally every Christian, not just specifically Jehovah's Witnesses, they still only make up 23% of the world population. So it's objectively not true.
Let's take a look at the comment here. France following Norway's lead. Hopefully more governments will keep putting the pressure on. Absolutely, I would love to see that. Problem is that, Jehovah's Witnesses have famously dealt with this pedophilia problem in their ranks. And it's I don't understand why they're so dead set on protecting them. There are people that take advantage of children in every demographic, in every society. That's just a problem that we have to deal with as a society. The problem is that Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, are protecting them. They're hiding them from prosecution. Why would you do that?
Because if they don't hide them from prosecution, then they're the same as all of the other Christians, and Jehovah's Witnesses want to be better. They would never allow something like this to happen in their ranks. That's why they're just going to cover it up. They're just going to slide it under the rug so that no one knows about it.
It's because they look bad, and they know it looks bad.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. If I find out someone's taking advantage of children, I'm going to report them to the police. Are you kidding me? Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case something happens with the government or whatever. It would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that. And maybe you should consider that for other creators too. Anyway, so Jehovah's Witnesses try to cover this stuff up. And they say, this is like a religious movement with religious, goals and interests, and we handle religious matters. And that is a legal matter, not a religious matter. So we handle it in a religious way, not a legal way. And they have backed off of basically telling people explicitly, do not call the police. They're no longer doing that. They used to. And now they're just kind of not saying anything. If you call the police, fine. If you don't call the police, fine. However, fascinatingly, the elders are explicitly instructed to not call the police. The elders who are involved in this should have nothing to do with the police. But if you look in the elders' manual, I discovered this when doing research for my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses. If you look in the elders' manual, you'll find this whole section about how when you set up a new congregation, you're supposed to create a link with the local police department. You're supposed to send 2 elders over who will liaison with the police and get to know them, take them out to dinner, and just get familiar with the local cops so that if something happens like an arson or like graffiti or a fire, you have a rapport there. You can work with them. But not to report people who take advantage of children. You should clamp it completely. Not say a word. That is wild to me. Anyway, yes, they're following Norway's lead, and I do hope that governments continue to put pressure on. Absolutely. Great leak. If witnesses can write to stop it happening, we can write to encourage it happening. Here are the emails of the associations pressing this forward. Wow, that's interesting. And you can take a look on the screen if you want. I don't want to read them out. Here's an example of a letter this person's writing. Dear Sir or Madam, I would rather dear guy, gal, or non-binary pal. I am writing as someone who once belonged to Jehovah's Witnesses. Who once belonged to Jehovah's Witnesses and has been and who has seen the pain caused when people choose to leave. Those who decide to walk away often lose everything, including their families, their friends, and contact with their own parents, children, and grandchildren. The emotional pain is deep and lasting. It's hard to describe what it feels like to be treated as if you no longer exist. I want to thank you sincerely for paying attention to this situation. Your willingness to look closely at the organization and its impact on families gives hope to many of us who've lived through this. It means a great deal to know that someone is listening and cares. With gratitude and respect. That's pretty good. I like that.
Funny how they emphasize the loss of tax benefits and real estate. Tells you everything you need to know and what they really care about. Yeah, I noticed that too. It was difficult for me to recognize that it was Jehovah's Witnesses who were writing it, because when you're speaking one-on-one to a Jehovah's Witness, they're usually at least with my grandma, they're oh, they care about you personally, and your friends and your family, and they just want to save you. But this entire letter was just, guys, we're losing money. We're losing tax benefits. Come on, you got to report it.
Benefits, right? They're losing tax benefits. You're not entitled to this stuff, obviously. They're losing extra special privileges that they are granted, and privileges are there to reward people for doing something, right? For whatever it is, to reward them for taking care of the poor, the homeless, or whatever. What are Jehovah's Witnesses doing to benefit society? Again, nothing. They're doing nothing to benefit society. They are actively harming society. They do not deserve tax benefits or extra special privileges that nobody else gets. And they want to start a letter writing campaign, just as we did to Russia. Whatever happened to political neutrality? Exactly. What happened to political neutrality? Fascinatingly, they did a letter writing campaign to Hitler, too. First, Joseph Rutherford agreed with Hitler and wrote a letter to him saying, "You're totally right about the Jews. They are shifty and evil, and I'm all in with you. So please stop jailing my people." And when Hitler didn't respond at all, Rutherford resorted to threatening Hitler, which, as you can imagine, didn't end well either.
I'd be really embarrassed if I wrote a letter to a dictator saying, "No, please, dictator, I love you so much." And he just ignored me. That's embarrassing.
You can see a copy of the letter to Hitler, too. Do you want to?
Sure. I get embarrassed when I text someone something and they don't respond. Imagine emailing a dictator. Not emailing, like mailing a dictator.
Mailing.
Yeah.
Pre-email. What happened before email?
Pre-e.
How did we communicate before email?
We just didn't. We died.
This is the actual letter to Hitler. One of them. Page 2, page 3. And it's in German, of course, so you can't read it, but it's converted to, or it's translated to English. We can look at the English words in a second. This is the description of what was going on in the yearbook, and then this is a declaration of facts. This was passed around to Germany and sent personally to Hitler as well. And the declaration of facts basically laid out Jehovah's Witnesses' position on Jews, that they're evil, that they take money, they're greedy, and blah, 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 you know, all that other junk that they claimed at the time. Wild stuff, seriously. Anyway, so they sent a letter, or they sent a declaration of facts, a copy of it, to Hitler along with the letter that they wrote to Hitler. And the letter to Hitler, here, this is some of it. The conference of 5,000 delegates also noted, as is expressed in the declaration, that the Bible researchers of Germany are fighting for the very same high ethical goals and ideals which also the national government of the German Reich proclaimed, respecting the relationship of humans to God, namely, honesty of the created being toward its creator. The Brooklyn headquarters of the Watchtower Society is pro-German in an exemplary way, and has been so for many years. There are a couple of really interesting ones. Hold on. Letter mentions Hitler's just principles, quoting from section 24 of Das Programm der NSDAP, the Nazis' platform of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which stated, "We demand freedom of religion for all religious denominations within the state, so long as they do not endanger its existence or pose the moral senses of the Germanic race." I was looking for the part where he said they were greedy.
Start in the same way that, like, what Trump's doing now with immigrants and Mexicans specifically are taking jobs.
It all started in an identical way in Germany.
That's...
Yes, they claimed that the Jews were immigrants. They said that they were aliens.
Because I've never known where the stereotype that Jewish people are greedy and just want money came from, but now that I'm thinking about it, people are claiming the same thing about Mexican immigrants specifically and saying they're taking our jobs and they're taking our health care and blah, 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 blah.
Well, Jews uniquely, you know, that for Jews, that started long, long ago.
How?
It started thousands of years ago. But there's a document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
It was written in 1902 in Tsarist Russia, and it claims to be recorded minutes at the meetings of like the elders of Judaism or whatever. It was fake. It was completely fabricated, and it basically validated every ridiculous stereotype that existed about them being, you know, greedy, about eating babies. That's in there. And a bunch of other stuff. A lot of the problems with Jews kind of evolved naturally from the fact that they had very specific rituals and beliefs about how to handle dead bodies that the rest of Europe did not have. So during the Black Plague, Jews were not catching the Black Plague at the same rate as other Europeans because they handled bodies differently. And that led some people to believe that they were involved in spreading the plague somehow. They also had something called Kabbalah, the Jews did, or do, I guess, from the book of Zohar. And it's a meditation method, but it makes some pretty wild mystical claims about how if you meditate hard enough, you'll gain telepathy and things like that. But like the Kabbalistic masters all died off without passing on their knowledge, so nobody can successfully use telepathy anymore, but it's available through God and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, all that magical, nonsensical stuff that the Jews believed in, that kind of leaked out into the rest of society, and they're like, oh, they're demons, they're magical, and they're...
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
Taking advantage of people and all this other stuff. The greedy stereotypes existed for a long time, but there have been reasons, or people have always found reasons to validate their beliefs about stereotypes. Jews were pushed out of almost every industry, except for the banking industry, because the Catholic Church believed that it was unchristian. Usury was unchristian. You can't loan money and gain interest from that money. If you're a Christian, you can't do that to another Christian. So banks were hiring Jews because they don't have that same rule about usury, about loaning money to people and gaining interest. Being a banker was a lowly position that was frowned upon. So that's the only kind of field Jews could get into. And they got to the top of their fields. I mean, that's how it works. You stay in a field long enough, you get to the top of your field. And now everyone feels like they're being taken advantage of by these Jews because they're, gaining interest off of loans and things like that. That's where a lot of it's basically like it started with a seed of nonsense, and then it was validated by things all along the way. Does that make sense? Anyway, back to the letter to Hitler. It says, "It's falsely charged by our enemies that we have received financial support for our work from the Jews. Nothing is further from the truth. Up to this hour, there has never been the slightest bit of money contributed to our work by Jews. We are the faithful followers of Christ Jesus and believe upon him as the Savior of the world, whereas the Jews entirely reject Jesus Christ and emphatically deny that he is the Savior of the world, who sent God for man's good. This of itself should be sufficient proof to show we receive no support from Jews, and that therefore the charges against us are maliciously false and could proceed only from Satan, our great enemy. The greatest and the most oppressive empire on earth is the Anglo-American Empire, but that has meant the British Empire, of which the United States of America forms a part. It's been the commercial Jews of the British American Empire that have built up and carried on big business as a means of exploiting and oppressing the peoples of many nations. This fact particularly applies to the cities of London and New York, the stronghold of big business. This fact is so manifest in America that there is a proverb concerning the city of New York, which says, the Jews own it, the Irish Catholics rule it, and the Americans pay the bills. That is some racist shit right there. Anyway, Rutherford threatened Hitler after he refused to work with him and let the Jehovah's Witnesses out of jail. He said, we're going to blow the lid off of everything that you're doing right now and cause a big stink if you don't let us out. And Hitler didn't respond within the due date. I think it was like, he said it in December, and he said he was going to blow the lid off of everything by March if he doesn't do something about it. I forget now. And Hitler just didn't respond. So what did he do? He went on this whole crusade to go up against Hitler, and he started publishing concentration camp blueprints in the yearbook and stuff. And he started a letter writing campaign, a telegram campaign, actually, to write telegrams to Hitler from across the world. And it pissed off Hitler so much. Wilhelm Frick, I believe is the name of the interior minister in Germany, brought Hitler one of the telegrams that was being mass sent to him. And Hitler looks at the telegram and said, these people will be exterminated in Germany. Again, I talk about this in my book too. I think chapter 7 on Jehovah's Witnesses. And I actually have a picture of the telegrams.
Makes me wonder if Hitler even saw the first letters. He didn't respond, he didn't care enough. It makes me wonder if he even saw it.
It says, the telegram campaign, this is from my book, the telegram campaign infuriated Hitler. Plenipotentiary advisor Karl Wittig describes what happened next. He was in the room with Wilhelm Frick and Hitler when Frick handed Hitler some of the telegrams. Frick said, if the witnesses do not fall into line, we will employ the most severe measures against them. Hitler jumped to his feet in a fit of rage and responded, this mob will be exterminated in Germany, quote unquote. The telegram set off a wave of arrests, and I have a picture of the telegrams that were sent. in my book. I made it black and white, but there is a color version of the image. Right here. This is it. Your ill treatment of Jehovah's Witnesses shocks all good people of earth and dishonors God's name. Refrain from further persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses. Otherwise, God will destroy you and your national party. Anyway, the point is that this is kind of the tactic that Jehovah's Witnesses have used since the beginning. And it does have an effect, to be fair, on occasion. But I hope it doesn't have any effect on France. I hope that they do go through with this. I want them to be able to worship, but I don't want them to get any special privileges from anybody. Yeah, tell me your thoughts.